Meanwhile, back in Washington, Senate Majority Leader John Thune continues to reject President Trump's calls to end the filibuster in an effort to pass the Save America Act. Speaking to reporters yesterday, Thune called the move much more complicated and riskier than many supporters would assume. His comments come after the president urged the Senate to take up and pass the legislation that would change voter ID requirements ahead of the midterms. The president also pushed for major new additions to the bill yesterday while speaking to Republicans, including sweeping limits on mail-in voting. Trump also has threatened not to sign any other piece of legislation until the Save America bill becomes law. Joining us now, Politics Bureau Chief and Senior Political Columnist at Politico, Jonathan Martin. J-Mart, so this is one area where Majority Leader Thune has pushed back against the president, saying we're not getting rid of the filibuster. It's bad for us. It'll come back to haunt us someday. But what does this sort of logjam look like? How does this end where you have the president saying, don't do anything else, and if you do, I won't sign it until you pass the Save America Act, which I believe may at least make better our chances this fall in the midterms?
Well, two things. Trump has to be caught trying. He's got to show to Trump in the White House that he's attempting to actually move this bill, and they're going to have to spend some floor time on it in the next week or two. Look, here's a challenge for Thune on this. He's an institutionalist. He wants to protect the filibuster for the decades to come because that's just who he is as a lawmaker. But it's also a raw political calculation, Willie. If you bring this bill up and if you try to break the filibuster or do the talking filibuster, as it's called, you allow Democrats to bring up any number of amendments and votes on all kinds of questions that they don't want to take votes on that are politically going to be difficult at a midterm year. So Thune is, looking out for the institution, but also looking out for his caucus in an already tough midterm cycle.
I mean, the last thing, you were so right, J. Mart, the last thing a lot of these Republican senators want to vote on are the extraordinarily unpopular pieces of legislation or executive orders that Americans just hate. And they'll be able to bring up, they'll be for, members hated to vote on unpopular bills. It was always very funny to watch how they wanted to have the speaker do whatever they could to stop that. I do want to stop, though, and let's just stop for 1 second, because I've talked a great deal about how Republicans have done so many things that are going to blow back on them when Democrats take control. What's fair for the goose is fair for the gander.
Yeah.
In this situation, though, let's look at the filibuster and just look, even in the craziest of times, when Democrats held the Senate and everybody was hammering them to bring the filibuster down to 55 or get rid of it, Joe Manchin and a few others said no, save the filibuster. And now Republicans, John Thune in particular, are doing the same thing, going, that's just not going to happen. I'm just not going to do it. And I think this is one of those moments we should just stop and say, okay, here's a part of this institution that is holding. It's important.
And the votes just aren't there, is Thune's other point. It's not just his preference. There's also a sort of coterie of senators who will never blow up the filibuster, and a lot of them are Republicans. And that's in part because they know if Democrats win back the White House, House and Senate in 2029, guess what they're going to do? Well, they're going to take steps like making Puerto Rico and D.C. a state to get 4 more senators that could fundamentally reshape the Senate. And I think that's why they're never going to do this. It's raw politics. And also, they do care about the nature of the institution. And they were horrified, I think, when Democrats tried doing this a couple of years ago when they were in power. And I think they're going to throw their body across the tracks to do it now. But, Joe, it's going to create real tension and an already tough midterm cycle between John Thune and Donald Trump, a relationship that was never really, made in the stars. Let's put it that way. They're very different. Okay. They're very different people,
That's fair. J-Mart, today Politico is launching its new YouTube show and podcast series, On the Road with Jonathan Martin.
Hey.
It features, that's you, sit-down interviews with newsmakers and some of the best restaurants in their home states. That's nice, offering candid conversations about the big issues out of Washington, as well as what's shaping the 2026 midterms. And for the first episode, you covered a handful of topics with Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, including her thoughts about Trump's influence on who will be the 2028 Republican presidential nominee. Take a look.
Does he want a primary, or does he want to do like one part Bachelor, one part The Apprentice, and have like Marco and JD bring a rose to the West Wing and then go in and see him?
That's a question you're going to have to ask
put it all
the
on
president.
TV.
Yeah, that's a question. You know, he definitely likes a little bit of a battle, but I think that's a question you'd have to ask the president.
It's just fascinating because, you know, obviously there's a lot of ambition in the party, but I think he wants to create the ticket himself because he can sort of see it already in his mind.
I think it's less about him even creating the ticket, but he still has the biggest microphone anywhere in the country.
Yeah.
And people are going to look to him for leadership and guidance. And I don't think he'll have any reservations about sharing opinions. That's one of the reasons people love Donald Trump.
Okay, what was the restaurant? And I'm surprised she didn't just say J.D. Vance. It just, no, that wasn't her thought.
No, that was the most striking part of that conversation, Mika, was that I said, do we know who the 2028 nominee is going to be? She said, not at all, which tells me that a lot of high-level Republicans who you would assume would be for Vance automatically if that was Trump's preference, are keeping their powder dry because Trump is keeping his powder dry because Trump is holding open the possibility that maybe it's Marco Rubio. And that, of course, is the great drama right now happening backstage in the administration. But you're great to plug the interview. It was Wright's Barbecue, a superb barbecue joint in Little Rock. I had the ribs and the brisket. Fantastic meal. Here's the concept, guys. For the last 20 years, I've been covering politics, traveling the country, having fantastic meals with candidates and their staff. And I figured, why not just bring everybody else in on that, put a camera up. You can watch us there on video. If that's too much, seeing us eat, I understand that. You can listen to it, too, on a podcast. That's sort of the PG version if you don't want to see us actually eating. And, guys, the concept is basically this. It's one part Bourdain, one part Lunch with the FD, and one part kind of nerdy Almanac of American politics. And the idea is to have a real no BS conversation about what's happening in politics. And so
look at
this.
That's Barnacle. That's a Barnacle.
It's a print guy on TV. What can I say?
Every night.
J. Mart, if you're going to Maine, I got some restaurants for you.
I've got. Please, down east. Let's go down east. Let's do MDI. I'm ready. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So,
go ahead, Joe.
Jay, so let me ask you really quickly. Mika brought up something about J.D. Vance not being mentioned, and this is coming up more and more. J.D. is not sort of rising to the top in these natural conversations. Just a lot of anecdotal evidence, but in politics, I learned like really early. Anecdotal evidence, those are data points that add up. I was talking to somebody yesterday who was talking about, their family, big MAGA family out of Texas, and they're all on Marco Rubio's train. And I was stunned because Marco doesn't strike me as the favorite of MAGA. I'm just curious, what are you kind of just hearing out there about who's rising to the top? Because I've always said it's probably not going to be JD. It's probably not going to be Marco. It's probably going to be somebody like Tucker Carlson. But man, I don't know. What are you hearing?
I'm hearing that gravity still applies in American politics, and Rubio, Joe, is the superior political talent. It's undeniable to anybody watching this, no matter if their name is Donald Trump or an activist watching in Texas. And I just think that's going to increasingly be hard to avert your gaze from in the months and years ahead. And, Joe, every time he has a moment, whether it's the Charlie Kirk Memorial Service or the speech at the Munich Security Conference or just a good TV hit, Donald Trump is watching because there's no bigger TV critic in chief than Donald J. Trump. And so Trump sees this stuff. He watches it. He takes it in. And then he asks his colleagues, he asks, the gardener at Mar-a-Lago, what do you think, J.D. or Marco? And he obviously knows Marco has got real riz, as the kids say. So it may ultimately still be Vance because he's the VP number 2. But don't forget, Marco's 13 years older than Vance. He's Speaker of the Florida House, a U.S. Senator, Secretary of State. He's had a career for 20-plus years in American politics. covering politics, it's hard to see how there's not ultimately a tough decision here. And Joe, privately, if you talk to Republican senators, they will tell you Marco is formidable. This is going to be awkward for us because everybody knows it. And if we're looking down the barrel of a tough race in 2028 and we got to send our best, to borrow a phrase, how do we not send Rubio? You know, if it's already going to be a tough campaign.
Another thing, too, Mike Barnicle, as you know from covering as many presidential contests as you've covered, it's the same thing with baseball. You know, you can be the hottest hitter in double and triple A, but until you get up to the show and you watch a 99-mile-an-hour fastball hit the top of the zone and the next pitch, you know, is a slider that just drops off a table, you don't know how to do it. Marco has been at the show. He had a very tough presidential campaign in 2016. But then again, just about everybody who ultimately wins presidencies first start with a sort of brutalizing experience in a prior campaign, whether that's Ronald Reagan or, you know, whether it's a series of other candidates that lose before winning.
You know, Joe, in any business, there's a big jump from AAA to the major leagues, especially in politics. And the back and forth between these two potential presidential candidates, Marco Rubio and the incumbent vice president of the United States, it's striking to see both of them on TV next to each other. One looks like a trainee, the vice president, and the other, the Secretary of State, looks like a legitimate major leaguer.
All right, the new YouTube and podcast series, On the Road with Jonathan Martin, On the Road with J Mart.
There you go.
Politico's Jonathan Martin.
Come join
Thank
me.
you.
Woo.